Senator De Leon, you have the floor.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Vice Chair, you were so articulate when you presided as the chair of the I should say not the Appropriations Committee, but of the Trans Committee. Congratulations. To my colleagues, thank you for the opportunity to present SB 767, which will allow Los Angeles County voters to decide if the local sales tax, local sales enhancement should be increased by ½ cent to fund transportation projects. If approved, this sales enhancement and resulting projects will improve public transportation, reduce traffic congestion, promote sustainable regional development. Los Angeles, as you all know, is one of the most congested transportation corridors in the country. And with the projected population growth of more than 1.5 million people in the next 30 years, we can assume that congestion will only worsen unless investments are made to improve quality and mobility. At the state level, I want to give a lot of credit to our chair of Transportation Committee, Senator Jim Bell, because he has wisely recognized that the investments to preserve California's transportation system have, quite frankly, have not been sufficient, nor do they meet the current demands. So in real terms, funding has diminished while the demand and the cost to maintain and operate the transportation system have soared increasingly. Traditional fuel tax revenues are not keeping pace with inflation and the proliferation of fuel-efficient cars and other alternative fuel vehicles, while desired technological advances are reducing this funding. Consequently, counties have turned to the voters to provide the authority and funding for priority transportation projects. For example, Measure R in Los Angeles, approved by 67% of the voters back in 2008, will generate approximately $36 billion over a course of 30 years for transit and highway improvement projects. It's estimated that Measure R will create upwards up to 166,000 jobs. And although Measure R is drastically changing transportation in Los Angeles, further investment is needed. Residents, local governments, and transportation leaders in the region believe there are thousands of worthy projects, particularly transit projects, which will not be funded by Measure R. Senate Bill 967 does not, and let me underscore and emphasize to all my colleagues in a bipartisan manner, does not impose a tax at all whatsoever. Rather, it authorizes Los Angeles Metro to develop a ½ cent sales enhancement ordinance. That means it's up to the voters to give them the choice if, in fact, they want to move forward with any type of enhancement. That ordinance must be approved by 2/3 of the voters of Los Angeles County and must include an expenditure plan that lists the projects and programs that will be funded when it goes before the voters. By working with the Sub-Regional Council of Governments, COGS, to identify priority projects, LA Metro is pursuing a bottoms-up approach that will result in an ordinance that reflects the unique transportation needs of each area of the county. Allowing LA County to explore this option will allow the region to determine its own future. With that, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and colleagues, with me to testify in support is Michael Turner of the Los Angeles Metro. I respectfully ask for my colleagues, I vote. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Witnesses, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Michael Turner on behalf of the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority. And I'd first like to start by thanking Senator De Leon for carrying this bill and for supporting us in this process. As he mentioned, this is a tremendous opportunity for Los Angeles. Through Measure R, we are making transformative changes in Los Angeles County. We have the largest public works and transit expansion in the country. And with the United Board and support from our partners, we are transforming Los Angeles County. We have used the Measure R money to leverage federal funds, to leverage state funds, and as of now, we have $15 billion in contracts on the street for transit projects, highway projects, vehicle acquisitions, as well as trying to get a handle on the backlog in state of good repair at our agency. So we've been very aggressive. We want to continue to be very aggressive, but clearly more needs to be done. SB 767 provides an opportunity for us to look at another sales tax measure in Los Angeles County. The board has initiated a process where we want to work with the subregions. We want to develop consensus and collaborate with our partners as we develop this measure so that we have consensus about the structure and the projects to be funded by the measure. To that end, we've allocated funds and consultant teams to each of the subregions to develop their priorities. We're currently working with them to refine those priorities, to look at measures of geographic equity and how we could ultimately structure this measure as we go forward. As I mentioned, we're making good progress on this. We're at a point where we don't have projects yet identified. We're still talking about the framework of what this tax would look like, but at some point in the not too distant future, as the Senator mentioned, we'll have to develop something like, we'll have an expenditure plan. It will identify the specific projects and programs that would be funded by the tax. And we look forward to working with everyone in Los Angeles County and our partners at the state to develop that measure.
Thank you. Other witnesses?
Chairman Bell, honorable members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Jenny Larios, and I'm the Executive Director of Mobility 21. I'm here today to share our coalition's strong support of Senate Bill 767. This bill, authored by Senate President Pro Tem Kevin De Leon, would authorize LA Metro to put a new half-cent sales tax measure on the 2016 ballot to fund transportation improvements. If approved by voters, this sales tax measure would generate hundreds of thousands of jobs and bring billions in new investment power to the region. Our Southern California Transportation Coalition spans 7 counties, including Los Angeles, Ventura, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino, Imperial, and San Diego. Revenue from local sales tax measures contributes to a majority of transportation funding in our region. Investment in infrastructure stimulates the economy, spurs job creation, and reduces congestion and our greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay, thank you.
A large-scale transportation investment program in Los Angeles County benefits the entire state, creating job opportunities, improving mobility, revitalizing our economy, and helping to move freight in Southern California, which is home to our nation's busiest port complex. In addition, this investment program would help us leverage local funding to garner greater support from the federal government, as well as help Southern California meet greenhouse gas reduction targets. On behalf of the 6,000+ members of Mobility 21, we strongly urge your support of SB 767 to allow Los Angeles County to seek voter approval for needed transportation improvements. I appreciate the opportunity to share our support of this bill, and thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Barry Broad on behalf of the Amalgamated Transit Union and the Teamsters, who are some of the operating unions at the MTA in Los Angeles. We're strongly in support of the bill. One thing we would like to mention for the author and the sponsors to consider as the bill moves along is perhaps taking a similar amendment to what was in the last legislation that was done on this area in 2008, which reserved 20% of the money for bus operations and 5% for rail operations. So when the construction projects are done, there actually is a budget to run the service. So we would just respectfully ask that that be considered as the bill moves along. Thank you.
Other witnesses, please.
Mr. Chairman and members, Andrew Antwi here today on behalf of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti. We want to, on behalf of the mayor, very much thank the Pro Tem for starting the conversation about taking transportation funding and the future of that into our own hands in Los Angeles County. We very much appreciate the way the bill is structured, which facilitates the bottoms-up process. The Metro Board provided $500,000 to each sub-regional council of government so that they could develop their own priorities for funding as opposed to having the legislature mandate a list. The committee analysis correctly notes that the author's preference is that this process be handled and negotiated locally. We very much support that approach. So with that, we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keith Dunn. I'm the Executive Director of the Self-Help Counties Coalition. Promises made, promises kept is what we like to say of the 20 counties that have gone forward and moved forward with these local measures. There's not a member on this committee who doesn't have a self-help county that's touched, provided jobs and mobility in your district. This is one more effort to continue that practice. It's accountability to the taxpayers. It's delivering on what they want, and that's why we have success. and I urge your support for this measure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jeremy Smith here on behalf of the State Building and Construction Trades Council. Construction workers are continually working themselves out of a job. We need to keep the flow of money going so that construction can continue. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members, Dave Ackerman representing the Associated General Contractors. Strong support of the measure. Every $1 billion you put into major transportation construction creates 19,000 direct construction jobs. The Federal Highway Administration says that the extra jobs created off of that, the spin-off jobs, increases to almost 30,000 jobs per $1 billion spent. So it's a huge influx into the economy, not only the jobs created with the program, but the final results of mobility in Los Angeles County, which is extremely important. We request your aye vote.
Thank you.
Jeff Severs on behalf of the California Asphalt Pavement Association, also in support.
Good afternoon, Justin Fans on behalf of the California Association of State Association of Electrical Workers, the Western States Council of Sheet Metal Workers, and the California State Pipe Trades Council. I'll associate my remarks with that of Mr. Smith and ask for your support. Thanks.
Thank you.
Phone is working. All right, Gerard Wright, Move LA policy analyst in support of SB 767. In front of you should have a letter with about 50 organizations and other nonprofits and groups that are in support of this measure, and want to thank the Senate Pro Tem for introducing this legislation and making sure that the local communities are heard and that we can work together to craft a measure, because we need 2/3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Todd Blumstein for the Southern California Contractors Association support.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Antwi here again. The advocate Tim Egan asked me on his behalf to register support from the Southern California Association of Governments. He did file a letter with the committee, but could not be here.
Thank you. Other witnesses in favor? In favor.
Mr. Chair, members, Steve Baker with Aaron Reed and Associates. We're kind of not in the tweener category, more in support, but certainly not in opposition. We represent the Metro Gold Line Foothill Extension Construction Authority in the San Gabriel Valley. We heard about promises made, promises kept. In 2008, the expenditure plan in Measure R included our project out to Claremont. Unfortunately, over the years, that project has only been funded to Azusa, so we'd like to make sure that that previous promise that was made is kept. We certainly appreciate the efforts of the new mayor and the new leadership at the Gold Line. It has been a new administration. The mayor has been out to our region and has expressed support for the project, and that has certainly not gone unnoticed. We're hopeful that that local process works out to our advantage, but we just want to make sure that the previous promises are actually kept and that we can finish our project.
Okay, thank you. Other witnesses? Witnesses in favor? No more? Witnesses opposed? Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members, good afternoon. David Wolf with the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. We're opposed to this bill, and just by way of precedent, it's worth noting we also opposed AB 2321, which authorized what became the original Measure R back in 2008. So this is a long-standing precedent for us. And while we understand and certainly acknowledge the fact that this is a 2/3 special tax on the local level, and obviously we're appreciative of that, the issue is this sets a negative precedent because this is one of authorization. This legislature is authorizing the Municipal Transportation Agency to authorize an additional tax. It does set a negative precedent, and here's why. Bradley Burns, the sales tax rate, has been law for decades, and that sets a 2% cap on local sales tax measures. There's a reason for why this is the place. A reason for why this is the case today. To exempt it out creates complications for retailers and all sorts of other concerns. I mean, you have different sales tax rates in different areas, and it creates kind of a hodgepodge of sales taxes that are very difficult for retailers, very difficult for taxpayers. And there's a reason, I think, again, why that 2% cap is in place. And the more exemptions that are carved out, the worse the problem is going to become. Of course, it's also worth mentioning, too, members, that sales taxes are highly regressive. There are some municipalities in this state, including within the county of Los Angeles itself, that are at or near a 10% sales tax rate right now. Sales taxes are very regressive. We have the highest sales tax rate in the nation, and simply can't authorize or recommend that this legislature authorize further taxation. So for that reason, ask for a no vote.
Okay, thank you. Other witnesses opposing? Okay, let's open up for questions from the committee members. Senator Wachowski, Senator Mendoza. Okay.
I have a clarification. I feel somewhat slighted, Senator De Leon. The opposition, I had a series of bills in Alameda County that we went out in 2012 and failed to get the 2/3 vote, just like Los Angeles did in 2012. And the opposition said, well, the people have voted. They didn't get the 2/3. You shouldn't get another bite of the apple. So, but they did. In 2014, they passed the sales tax. I want to be sure that when I did that second legislation, I gave several elections for the county to decide, and based on their expenditure plan, when to go out. If I'm reading it right, this is up to the county whenever they want to. There's no limitation on it.
That is correct.
And secondly, there's no limitation on the length of the bond that you're asking people and the size of the bond. That's up to the proponents under the expenditure plan.
That is correct.
And it's also opened up, you're starting with a fresh slate according to the analysis, is that you're going into all your cities in the county and asking them to participate in this expenditure plan so that you build an understanding of in 2015, what is it that the community wants, which is mirrored what happened in Alameda County successfully 2 years ago.
That is correct. Bottoms up.
All right.
That is correct. So yes, yes.
Senator Mendoza.